Welcome to the HR Data Labs podcast, now part of the Redefining podcast network. Join us as we explore the vital role of compensation, strategy, data, and people analytics in navigating today's complex business world. With the resources of Redefined, we're now bringing you deeper insights and actionable ideas from top experts. Now, here is your host, David Turetsky. Hello and welcome to the HR Data Labs podcast. I am your host, David Turetsky, and I have with me a repeat guest, my friend Charlene Li. Charlene, how are you?
Doing great. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again. Charlene, if the people who are listening to this don't remember you, which I'd be shocked, could you give them a little bit about your background?
I have been a longtime analyst and author. I'm a New York Times bestselling author of 6 books, soon to be 7 as of the end of March. And I really focus on disruptive transformations and in particular, the leadership and culture needed to transform your organizations.
So what's the name of the book so they can go to Amazon when they probably are hearing this? It'll probably be out. So what's the name of the book?
The book is called Winning with AI, The 90-Day Blueprint for Success. And it's written by me, Charlene Li, and my co-author, my amazing co-author, Katja Welsh. She's one of the world's first chief AI officers and has been a dear friend of mine for more than 25 years.
That's amazing. She hasn't been in AI for 25 years, has she?
Well, probably about 18 years. So
Yeah.
a long time, a really long time. She's been in the data space as a chief data officer, chief AI officer, chief strategy officer. So she has a world of experience.
What's fascinating about that is people think AI is a 2020 plus initiative when they don't realize that ML and large language models have been around for quite some time. So,
And she's been there from the very beginning. So it's been wonderful to have her. She has a PhD in statistics. So she's worked with data for a very, very long time.
I love statistics and econometrics. So, but as we do on every podcast, Charlene, what's one fun thing that no one knows about you?
I train my cat to do tricks. Because
hear that last time?
You did. Maybe you did. But what's a new thing? I'll pull a veil back. I go to Burning Man. And and it's something I've talked about quite publicly about the leadership lessons I learn from Burning Man each time I go. I learn so much every time I go into the desert and kind of run around in the desert for a week and get really challenged with the weather, but also just challenged to just grow in ways that I never expected.
The living conditions, right? I mean, it's not a 5-star hotel.
Far from it. There's a lot of dust, a lot of heat, sometimes rain that turns everything into concrete mud. So you never know. And I focus on and research and live disruption, and going to Burning Man is one of the best ways to disrupt my day-to-day living.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's actually a great thing to get yourself out of your routine every once in a while and be something different or try something different. So I can't encourage people to do Burning Man. I haven't been there myself, but yeah, living outside yourself is probably pretty cool.
Yeah, everyone has a different edge. So wherever that edge is, I really encourage you to go to that edge and maybe not go over it, but live there rather than back at home base where safety is, because that's where we learn. It's where we grow as people. And if we can take our teams and our organizations to that collectively, oh my goodness, the learning and the growth that comes from being at that edge is just tremendous.
My old co-host used to jump out of planes or jump off of mountains with a paraglide. And I would tell him all the time, that's one edge I will not cross. If I'm in a perfectly good plane, I'm staying in the perfectly good plane.
Yeah, one of my hobbies is cliff jumping, and without a parachute, but the highest cliff I've done is about 35 feet in Hawaii. And you don't start off doing 35-foot cliff jumps. I started just jumping into waterfalls, in the Sierra foothills, and like maybe 5 feet. I'm like, oh, this is really fun. Found bigger and bigger rocks to jump off into water. And now there's another one I want to go, probably this summer. It's about 40 feet. So I'm like, okay, getting ready for that one.
Careful.
And it takes a lot of preparation to think about it. But the thing is that there's confidence from having done it so many times and knowing that thousands of people have jumped off this cliff safely before also, that says, no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. So that allows your friend to jump off of planes and off of mountains with a very small parachute.
Yeah.
But for us to do things that feel really hard.
Well, and I'm a hockey goalie, as you can tell. I have my masks behind me, so I can't say anything about that because, I get pucks shot at me at 100 miles an hour. So,
That's
yeah.
insane. I would never do
That's really
that.
funny because I think the same thing about cliff diving. So, okay. But hopefully we'll see the video and you'll be okay. Okay. So let's transition into today's topic, which I think is on top of everybody's mind. And that's, do we have to change our business strategy now that there is artificial intelligence?
Looking for the inside scoop on payroll? Whether you're a payroll pro or just curious about your paycheck, we've got two podcasts you cannot miss. It's About Payroll delivers the latest trends for payroll pros, and It's About Your Paycheck is here for employees, breaking down pay and rights in simple terms. Two great shows, two great hosts, and endless insights to keep you informed and empowered. Subscribe now and elevate your payroll knowledge. Brought to you by Redefining, where payroll meets people.
So, Charlene, the first question is, now that you've created this book and you have this blueprint for people, where do people start with the entirety of artificial intelligence and figuring out how it actually works within the context of HR and the business for that matter?
Right, right. And that's why we wrote the book, because we get asked that question all the time. I'm trying all these things. I'm in pilot purgatory. Help me figure out, what should I be focusing on? How do I really start to create real value for my organization? And we like to say you don't need an AI strategy because you already have a business strategy. Start with your business strategy and then figure out how to use AI to support that, to make it better, faster, cheaper, safer, and really focus on your business strategy first and foremost. AI is a technology, and you should never have technology followed by strategy as the thing that you're working on. It's, again, if you think about digital strategy or internet strategy or mobile strategy, AI strategy, it's a misplaced focus on the technology versus saying, why are we using this technology? And your business strategy is that why. Your customers and the value you create for them is the why.
But in terms of HR and leveraging AI for HR, it really falls into the same category, right? We have a business strategy in HR, and we have to follow whatever our current business strategy was, and now see, how does this affect it, right? Well,
And
sorry, go ahead.
And again, there are ways to support your existing business strategy with AI, and then many people are looking at ways how we can speed up engagement with potential candidates, engagement with our employees, doing things in a different way. But very importantly, it calls into question also, should we be doing things the way we're doing today? Should we be doing things differently? And I think the definition of madness is doing the same thing in an automated fashion when the thing that we're doing already was dysfunctional. So this is an opportunity to take a look and say, should we be doing things in a different way? Because we can.
My favorite thing as a consultant to ask people when I first get into the process and the data gathering is, why? Why do you do it this way? Oh, well, we had a person that developed this in 1985 and it just works for us. Why? What about now?
I know an organization is going to have some issues with this when I ask, so why do you do things? And they give me the response. That's the way we do things around here. And okay, great. That's the way you do things around here. But why do you do things around here? Like, I don't know, this is the way we do things. And so questioning that at the core, and an organization should be constantly questioning to not just say this is the way we do things around here, but could we do this in a different and better way? And as organizations, we tend to shut that down because organizations want to norm to a specific standard operating procedure. And that's great. But we also know that to maintain order, you need to constantly change because there are all these other forces that are destabilizing that equilibrium. So if you stay the same, I guarantee you will no longer have order. So change and order have to go hand in hand with each other.
But if they start doing that, then they really need to kind of review everything, going back to the beginnings, especially with regard to their data as well as their HRIT, the technology that drives HR, because that's all been built based on these antiquated processes like the personnel change form, which we all talk about so many times on this podcast.
Let's just go back to the resume.
Yeah, exactly.
What does a resume tell you about whether the person is going to be a good hire or not? The things that you're looking for, can I trust this person? Will they be hardworking? Are they going to be team players? Those don't show up on the resume, and those are the reasons we hire somebody. So why are we basing everything that we do from an HR perspective on these bits and bytes called a resume as a candidate? And then also from an employee perspective, there's so much rich data about who this person is. We don't capture it in anything other than maybe a yearly annual performance review that talks about the things they did, not who this person is.
And we leave on the floor the how they get things done, like the competency-based or the skill-based or the cultural-based. You may have achieved all your goals, but you burned the path getting there and the bridge was completely destroyed. So you got an exceeds performance rating because you did it, you achieved it, but no one wants to work with you anymore.
And I also feel like these nuanced skills that make a team successful. How do you fill all the really important roles? Who are going to be the activators? Who are going to be the deliberators? And having both of these people in the same room is incredibly powerful, but it can lead to a lot of tension because they're pulling in opposite directions. But the combination, and then you have the people who are the peacemakers between those two. I mean, pulling those elements together when you're pulling a team together to do a project is essential. And it doesn't exist other than hopefully you know somebody, but that is not an efficient way to pull in the best people for a particular project.
Well, Charlene, how does AI help with this now? Obviously there are lots of tools out there, but how does AI help with being able to put together an understanding about who the right person is to hire, or how do we work best together as a team? Does it?
I look at it this way. AI works best when it's given really good questions, and then it gives you really good answers. Our problem now as leaders is that we're not asking very good questions. We're asking it to go look through a bunch of resumes to find a particular thing that doesn't exist in them. Versus if you were to say, when we're interviewing candidates, really ask these kinds of questions that are going to tease out these softer skills, the things that are so important to success in our organizations. First of all, understand what are those skills in our organization that really we look for, who are our most successful people, analyze what it is that they work, how they work, and put those success factors into our interview forms, and then interview people, and then pull that information into your recruitment database and use that information on which to, first of all, interview people, to tease those things out, and then to help you decide who to hire. That kind of intelligence is invaluable, but we have to ask questions.
But asking questions has never been a really good skill that we've ever had, whether it's for a hiring manager asking an interviewee, a candidate, questions, or actually asking Siri, what's the weather going to be like today? We're good at that. But that's the simplest question you could possibly ask. Try and ask any compound question or slightly, like I tried to ask it yesterday, I tried to ask it to put a song on. And I was giving it a long string because there was a specific song on a specific album I wanted to hear. And it kept getting it wrong time after time. And so it's my fault because I didn't know the best way of being able to create that prompt. But we're still not good at this. And we've been using those technologies for probably more than 10 years, maybe 15 years.
Yeah. And I think we're in a bit of a disconnect right now because we know what the potential is for what AI can do. And then there's our day-to-day reality. It's just not in the places where we need it to be there. I think we're in a place about 18, 24 months where we're going to have to fill this gap and make do with substandard tools and tooling. I think the most important thing we could do right now is to have really interesting, deep conversations with our vendors to tell them, this is what I want, versus asking vendors, so what do you got for me? They're kind of guessing, frankly, right now. And the more data we can give them as HR leaders to say, you maybe think it's that, it's actually this. But that requires that we play with these tools, know what the shortcomings are, understand what our needs are as an organization, and to advocate for them. Otherwise, you're just letting the technology lead you to tell you what's important versus you saying, this is my business strategy and this is what's important to me.
Well, and many times they create these sets of tools because they think it's a gee whiz great idea, when it has nothing to do with what your business problem is that you just mentioned.
You can save everyone. I was just hanging out with a bunch of vendors this past week, and they all agreed, like, please save us the time and agony. So we won't waste your time and our time trying to tell you something that you don't need. So I think it behooves everyone to be really clear and to understand what are your business challenges, and to have that conversation, a really thoughtful conversation. I know a lot of companies who are now starting to bring in resources, developer resources, not to necessarily build solutions, but to help the organization just be smarter, to be able to buy better. So you're building just a little bit to know what's possible, to understand where our data is and play with the tools. But then you're having these deep, deep conversations with your vendors to actually build the solutions that you need.
Would it make more sense, Charlene, to have the AI in these tools not be as visible or not be as marketing focused, like flashy? Wouldn't it make more sense for them to be the foundation that kind of drives a lot of the way in which the workflow works, or from an agentic perspective? And it wasn't as flashy, but it got stuff done, right? Because the vendors have been trying to solve our business problems for a very long time. So they kind of know what they are, especially the HRIT, right? You hire someone, they transfer, they get a raise, they get a performance evaluation, they blah, 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 then they leave. They know that those things exist. So why wouldn't they just create these foundational elements that are on top of AI instead of trying to just bolt it onto the exterior of the hull of the ship, as it were?
Again, they have to be able to justify their fees, right? So just adding it onto an existing seat. And the danger, I think, with agentic AI in particular, there are no seats because they just happen in the background. So how do you charge for that? And so you need to make it visible. But I agree with you. The most powerful technologies are the ones that you don't see. They just happen. And what's interesting is all these interfaces, all these platforms are made for humans, because it's the way that we interact with the data, or the way we interact with the workflow. Agents don't need buttons or drop-down menus. They just need access to the data, and in particular, the context to understand what this data means. What's missing, I think, in a lot of these platforms is that there's the data and there's an application layer. And what's missing is a context layer, which humans provide now because we're the stickiness that goes between these systems.
Right.
That context layer needs to be built across these platforms, across vendors, that's unique to every single organization. That intelligence layer, that knowledge graph, whatever you want to call it, needs to sit on top of your data to give it meaning.
Isn't that really what human in the process is supposed to be, though? Well, us getting in the way, but also us facilitating so that the answers that the AI comes out with are really more appropriate?
Well, think about what the hiring process typically does. You're going through about 6 or 7 different systems, copy and pasting. We should never have to copy and paste.
No, of course not.
Right. And these things should just automatically flow. And when you need human approval or something to happen, then that can just pop up to the appropriate person. But it should just flow in the background. That's not the way these things work, because they're all in these different silos. Agents hate silos. They go, why can't I go do this next step?
Right.
Like, where is it? I need a human? Get out of the way. Like, what do I need a human for? Because the decision-making process that a human is in can be in there.
Yeah.
So again, I think until we feel comfortable that the AI can do a better job than us, of course we're going to be in it. But at some point, how do we decide that the AI is doing a better job than we are? When do we decide to let go of the reins? That's a really interesting question. We always talk about human in the loop. But when does human in the loop become the sticking place, the sticky place that you want to get rid of? When will we be comfortable doing that? So it's a philosophical question. And it's a huge identity question, too, for organizations as we go through this. What's the value that we provide as humans to all of this? And I face this as an analyst, as a thought leader, when I realize that all of my stuff is in AI, and that it gives me, did some research study early on, back in January 23, to say how much of AI is in there. How much of me is in there? And just giving it the same questions that I answered in real life, it was about 80% as good as me. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. And it's gotten much better already. So the only thing that makes me unique are the types of questions and the combinations and the things that I haven't done in the past. So the 20%
Right.
that is unique to me is the thing that's being formulated in real time. So again, I think we're going to have to rethink, what does a job look like? An entry-level job of a junior programming engineer no longer exists because Claude Code and OpenAI's Codex can do all of that. So what does an entry-level engineering job look like now? It needs to be redeveloped.
Isn't it more like a product owner was, where they become more experts in the domain and they provide that context, that 20% that the technology doesn't have?
Right. And how do you do that for an entry-level person? What is the role of an entry-level person? What are the skills they need? Again, we're in this really interesting time where our education and training systems have not caught up to what the needs are inside of organizations. And organizations are going to have to redefine what it means to be entry-level. IBM just talked about this. They're tripling down on entry-level jobs. They're not getting rid of them. They go, we always need new people. And IBM is one of those companies, hire straight out of college and you stay for 30 years.
Right.
So they know what that formula looks like. They need that pipeline of talent to come in. But now they have a redefinition of what entry level looks like. What are the skills you have to have? What are we going to train you on? They've completely redone what the job descriptions look like for an entry level coder. Yeah, you're going to use AI. If you don't know how to use it, we're going to train you, and these are the skills you need to have, and we're going to test for those skills.
If you take that same lens and you put it on top of human resources, what skills do we need to leverage? What skills do we need to learn to be able to do exactly what you just described for developers? Because our jobs will change. Our jobs have already changed, but some, because they haven't adopted these tools yet or have slowly done it, they haven't really changed at all. They haven't gotten those skill sets.
Again, this is the whole move of HR from being administrators to strategic thinkers. Who else in the organization is going to do workforce planning and transformation? Who else is capable of doing that? Who else can think about the role that technology is going to play in developing this new type of worker? We call it in the book the superhuman worker, who can take the best of AI, but use that to enhance the best of humanity, the empathy, the judgment, the wisdom, the self-reflection, and intuition that we as humans have. How do we use AI to marry that with the best of humanity? And instead, HR is thinking, okay, how do I automate all the things I do in the back end? Fantastic. And what does that do? What are you going to do with all that time now? Do more of it? Or will you do something different? What we need is HR to show up strategically at the table when we're talking about AI, not as somebody who's sitting here trying to mitigate risks. Think about, again, hiring is a risk mitigation process, basically. And instead thinking, how do we develop our workforce? How do we develop our people? How do we communicate with them about all these changes? How are we going to attract and retain a workforce that is going to be turned over in so many different ways? How do we address fear of AI? These are bigger questions than what AI has traditionally, what HR has traditionally been charged with thinking about. And the vast majority of AI councils do not have a strong presence of HR on them, which is astounding because you're talking about the future of work and the way that you work, and HR is not present at the table because they don't think they need to be, and nobody thinks they need to be there.
Well, and we've seen some press releases just recently where we wished they would have had HR at the table, as we were talking about before in the pre-recording, we were talking about the 4,000 people from Block that got eliminated and, under the guise of AI, just like a lot of these other layoffs have been lately.
I think AI is a very convenient scapegoat right now. And to some extent, it's probably true. But I think also people like Block are dealing with the post-pandemic hiring spree that they went on and saying, okay, we hired a lot in these areas, expecting there to be demand in these areas, and it really hasn't come through. Let's say it's because of AI. We just don't need these people. And it's probably true to some extent, but you don't lay off 4,000 people, 40% of your workforce because of AI overnight. There are other reasons why.
And that's just scary, though.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that this is corporate America, and corporate America will say whatever they need to get across what they need to get done. And if you are a person at another company, you're sitting here thinking AI is coming from my job. And you have one of two choices. I'm going to learn how to use AI. So no matter what happens, I'm going to be on top of it. Or my goodness, I'm doomed. So it's your choice to decide which of these two things is going to happen. I'll give you a non-tech example. I have a friend of mine who's a truck driver, and he could see autonomous trucking coming on the horizon. It's not here today, but it'll be here pretty soon. So he went and got a license to transport hazardous materials.
Of course.
With the bet that that's going to be the last thing that's automated.
Absolutely.
So just brilliant, right? And so what are we doing? How are we supporting our team members, our employees to be the most prepared, the most AI proof to be able to, and the only way to do that is to join in. And there's a lot of apocalyptic content out there right now between the Citrini research report, the AI doc that's coming out at the end of this month in March. And you can sit here and think AI is just bad. Let's go become AI vegans. Like, don't use it. We're just going to abstain from it. And my feeling is the bad guys will win if the good guys do not show up. We have to be the good guys. We have to show how to use AI in a responsible, ethical way. And a key part of that is to be very transparent about what the implications are for the future of work in our organization. How are we preparing for that? And
you were mentioning before that we were talking about the ostrich scenario. Don't put your head in the sand unless the sand is AI sand.
Well, people ask me, what do I say to people? What do I say to them is my job going to be lost to AI? And you can't promise them that it's not. What you can promise them is we know that change is coming, and we are going to prepare you and our organization to weather that storm, that change, as well as possible. We are providing training. We are providing the tools. We have a roadmap to say how we're going to use AI, and we're going to be as transparent with you about what that looks like. If there are any changes to the jobs and workforce, we're going to try to anticipate that so that we can prepare you and ourselves for that change. That's all you can promise.
Right.
But we're not even saying that. We're just saying nothing because we have no AI roadmap. We have no idea how we're going to use AI. We haven't asked ourselves the questions. So I'm asking HR leaders to say, well, please. Right. And lead in this moment.
The first thing they can do is go out and buy your book, because that will at least give them the tools necessary to build that 90-day roadmap. And at least, I don't want to say they're ignorant necessarily right now, but at least it'll give them some sunshine in that space to say, maybe I understand it better today. Right?
We don't pretend to have all the answers, but we will equip you with a lot of really good questions to ask. So that the next person who comes in with a bright, shiny object of AI says, hey, let's try this. And you say, fantastic. Thank you for looking for that. How does it help us support one of our top 3 objectives, A, B, and C?
Right.
And if they can't answer it, then you go, okay, go and figure that out. Right. And come back, because I want to hear it. But if you can show how it's going to substantially move ourselves forward, then we'll absolutely take that into consideration. But if it's not, it's just noise.
Right.
And we're not going to do it.
And the noise is necessarily a bad thing, because there's so much other noise going on, whether it's the economy, whether it's political nature, whether it's regulations or other things. you got to be able to focus, as you say, on those top 3 things first. And if it doesn't help that, yeah, maybe go and experiment, but don't kill the ship. Don't sink the ship while you do it.
I like to say that there are 3 questions that everyone in your organization should be able to answer. And I do believe this is the responsibility of leadership and in particular HR. Question number 1, what does the future look like? Where are your customers heading? How will you provide value for your customers in the future? Question number 2, what's our strategy to get to that future? Where we are today and how we're going to get to that future? What are the steps we're going to take? What are things we're not going to do? And third, and very importantly, what is my role in making that strategy a success? I come to work every day. What am I doing every day that's connected to making that strategy real? Everyone should be able to answer those 3 questions. And then you can talk about AI. How does it help us understand our customer better? How does it change or just reinforce our strategy? And how does it help me do my job in a way that makes me more effective in supporting that strategy?
Do
So
you
it all
think
flows back to the same.
right? Do you think that there are any skills that they would need to add to be able to ask those questions or to be able to know that they're actually on the right track?
People are asking me, what are the courses or newsletters or podcasts I can listen to get up to speed on AI? And you already have what you need to know. You have the questions, the why, the underlying why. And then use AI. This is really meta. Use AI to help you figure out how to use AI. Because
Well,
if you can put into AI, here's the problem that I'm trying to solve. Help me figure out how to use AI to solve it. It'll give you some options that you can follow.
and I use Perplexity. Other people use other things. I use Perplexity, and I really like it because I can ask it questions and then ask them, is that really the right question? And it'll say, now that you said that, and it will challenge itself as well as me based on the inputs I gave it. So it's making me a better prompter, as it were, as I go through. And I'm not saying everybody will love Perplexity. I'm sure there are others that other people like more, but
There's 2 thoughts to that. Perplexity is wonderful, and I really love it because it's so fresh and updated because it uses all the other search engines and other engines. And so what I like to do at the end of my prompts, I add, before you start, ask me any clarifying questions. What
yes.
else have I not thought about? And then the 2.0 version of that is copy and paste that prompt into multiple engines and then see which one asks you the most interesting, perceptive questions. Because AI has its good days and it has its bad days. And you never know which model is going to be better at answering that particular question at that particular moment. So try them all.
You know what that reminds me of, Charlene? When my kids used to answer shop between me and my ex. So they'd go to me and they'd say, hey, Dad, can I have this? And I'd say no. And then they take that exact same question and they'd go to their mother and go, hey, Mom, can I have this? Yes. There you go.
And I think, we know that these models can be fairly sycophantic too as well. So understanding that and taking it with a big grain of salt, I like to say that the most important skill that you can have is curiosity and imagination. And then right behind that, critical thinking. So my sense is that you have already everything that you need to be successful at using AI. So don't let anyone think that you don't. If you know how to use a prompt, you're off to the races. It's not going to feel great. It's going to feel like, I really don't know what I'm doing here. The results aren't what I'm looking for. And you have to keep constantly refining and learning, experimenting. It does not feel great. And that's how you know you're doing it right.
I think one of the analogs I like to ask or I like to do all the time is to fail fast. Ask the question, try and create the prompt the right way. And if I'm failing, to your point before, ask the AI what I did wrong to be able to get the answer that I need to. It can't read my mind, but because I'm asking it, what didn't I ask you? Like you said, it's going to help you become a better prompter.
Yeah, let me add to that. Yes, and it's not just failing fast, it's learning fast.
Exactly.
How do I learn at the speed at which my customers, my employees are changing and learning? I will always be behind because I will always be trailing them So how do I learn at their speed? Let them be my guiding light to say, what do I need to be learning about? And so I don't try to learn everything that's out there about AI. I'm very focused to say, what are the key problems and the questions I'm really focused on right now? And I go deep on those questions because I want to learn in that area to expand my expertise in a very specific area. I don't need to know everything about everything. That's what AI is for.
Right.
I need to be applying my expertise, my experience, my wisdom to a very particular set of problems that I have decided are worthy of my time and attention.
Charlene, I think you've now just opened the eyes of many people in the world of HR who have been self-doubting, especially around AI, because they're not technologists. So hopefully they've listened, and hopefully they'll buy you a book. What's the name of the book again? Thank you for listening to the HR Data Labs podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe and share it with your network. You can also check out the recordings on Spotify or the HR channel, now on Roku and Fire TV. Thank you, take care, and stay safe.